I'm David Meredith, and I'm the pastor of the Clifton United Methodist Church 3/4 time right now, and 1/4 time I'm the director of urban ministry for the Ohio River Valley District of the United Methodist Church. The urban ministry work is related to social justice work. So we do some work around race and law enforcement. We do work around immigration, and we do social justice work around the opioid epidemic, and trying to both prevent as well as mobilize United Methodists to be responsive to families and persons in their congregations who are affected by the opioid epidemic. So I began my journey of understanding my sexuality from a place of a harsh dualism that saw sex, sexuality, sexual expression, talk of sex, all as negative, all as deserving punishment, all as a part of a paved trail toward hell. I learned it from the, air and water, because it just seemed like everybody believed that, from my parents, from my Sunday school teachers, from my pastors. And yet I was learning simultaneously that I was beloved of God, that Jesus loved me enough to meet me in bread and cup, that the church loved me enough to ask me to serve, to bless my confirmation, to put me into leadership, so that when I, as a young adult, began teaching school and tried to find my way back into a robust faith as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old, it was only by the integration of my sexuality with my spirituality that I could make any progress. And so I had a radical, life-changing experience in the middle of a congregation, a sanctuary much like this one, on a Friday night about 3 a.m. It was a prayer vigil before Pentecost, and I'd signed up as a single young man to do that hour because other people didn't have to leave their kids at home or whatever. So I went into that dark space at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I prayed like my sexuality was the trash of my life. God, please, please, please free me from this. And what happened is not what I expected. I expected a liberation from my sexuality and to be able to be somebody other than who I knew I was. What I got in the middle of the night was this powerful blessing. I can only describe it as like warm oil just poured over me, sort of a robe or a blanket wrapped around me, and clear words of, you're not trash, you're mine. And I knew then that I was good enough for God. As a gay man, as a struggling disciple trying to be a United Methodist. And so from that point forward, I had to hold the two together. I didn't know how. I lived in a closet for several years. I went to therapy. I was called to seminary in the midst of that. And yet, all along the way, I have had nothing but confirmation that what God seeks from me and what God gives me is the joy of putting these together. The road is not easy for anybody, and the road for me was never intended to be an easy one. But it was always intended to be one in which I was whole, in which I was loved by God, in which I could fulfill my purpose as a servant of God, as a pastor in the church, and that I could model and embody and incarnate the greatest of God's possibilities. And that our bodies and the sexuality that's a part of them, and our spirits and the divine presence that's in it can be joined together, and that they can both be good. The responses to my marriage were many. Gathered the day of my wedding, there were 125 of my United Methodist clergy colleagues who blessed my marriage to Jim Schlachter. It was a powerful blessing. A bishop of the church was there. The district superintendents of the church were there. And then the laity of the church, laity of every congregation I've served, some of them were in that room, confirming, blessing, saying to Jim and me, we celebrate with you your love and your commitment and your life in the United Methodist Church. And then, Facebook lit up and our wedding was trending on social media. It was just like there was this huge support for us from across the United Methodist Church. And then there was real opposition. It would show up some in social media, but mostly it came in the form of letters of complaint sent to the bishop, my bishop, asking for me to be brought up on charges that I had violated my clergy vows. And so the past 3 years have included dealing with those complaints and charges and fighting against them. And I had coverage in the Cincinnati Enquirer, on TV, other kinds of places. So a lot of people knew this story. So it didn't surprise me really that I would experience some anonymous hate or threat or even attack. So I got some hate emails, I got some hate letters. But what did surprise me was when I came in one day and my office window had been removed, and someone had entered into my office, and that my credentials, my deacon's orders, my seminary diploma, and the pictures of those two events, which were framed, had been taken. I believe it was targeted because those two credentials are part of what authorizes me on paper to be the pastor I am, which in this moment means gay and married.